Hello, everyone, and welcome to Jess and the Guest. My guest today is one of the funniest comics I've ever seen, Lara Beitz. We talk about being the first comic on Lights Out with David Spade, being on the Joe Rogan Experience, the worst gigs in 2020, opening for Eliza Schlesinger, different comedy scenes, writing, stand-up, so much more, too. Lara's a staple at the Comedy Store in Los Angeles. She opens for Joe Rogan doing arenas. No big deal. No big deal at all. She is incredible. I learned so much from just watching her. If you can, please go see her live right now, and I hope you like this episode. You were incredible first comedian on David Spade Lights Out. You were so funny. How was that experience?
It was amazing. I had so much fun. I was so terrified. I was so nervous. I was so nervous that I remember I was getting ready and I heard someone in the hall, like a PA or someone, say, "She's so nervous." And I was freaking out. I mean, I felt sick. I felt so sick. I was backstage and I was absolutely having a panic attack up until the moment that they called me up. And it's so funny because I watched that set and I come out and I don't look nervous. And I was terrified. I mean, I was really losing my shit back there.
I would never guess.
I mean, he's someone who really, like, people are always surrounding him. People gravitate towards him. And you know, he was the star of the show, so everyone wanted to talk to him. And he, like, tunnel vision to me and, like, asked me where I'm from, asked me about my stand-up, and that was like the first time I met him. Like, he just really makes you feel like you're the only person in the room. I can't say enough good things about him. I love him. He's so fucking funny. I just a roast for the old booker of the Comedy Store who moved to Austin. And David went up last and did the shortest set of anyone and did the funniest set of anyone. Just absolutely went up, was like boom, 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 did a few jokes, absolutely annihilated. He's just so funny. He's such a role model.
Yeah, he's been like one of my comedy heroes, and everyone has only said such positive, nice things. I'm like, God, that's so cool.
Yeah, it was really fun.
Were you writing the whole time too during the shutdown, or doing all?
I wouldn't go so far as to say, sorry, it was like, I look like I'm naked. I'm not naked.
I'll get more no.
I wouldn't say I wrote the whole time, but I did write throughout, you know. I took a pilot writing class. I wrote 2 pilots. I wrote a bunch of stand-up, but by the time, you know, I observed CDC guidelines. And so by the time I was able to put a lot of that stuff on stage, it no longer made any sense. It certainly wasn't funny. It was about something that had been on the news 7 months ago, or like stuff that was like specific to my apartment, you know, and a lot of it was the ramblings of an insane person who had been under lockdown during a pandemic. So a lot of it wasn't fit for the stage, but I really believe in just like writing being the work. And even if that means like I'm staring off into space for 15 minutes trying to think up something to write, but I'm at my desk with my notebook. And with that intention, then I think that still counts towards the goal of being a great comedian. So it didn't really matter if that stuff was usable or not. I just think that the more time people spend away from writing, the more it develops into this big, scary thing in our heads. And so it's important to just keep doing it, even if it's like, I've had days where I so much didn't want to write, and it wasn't appropriate for me to take a break because I hadn't been like writing. You know what I mean? You know in your gut when you need a break and when you're being lazy. And I've had days where I was like, I'm going to set a timer for 5 minutes and I'm going to write for 5 minutes. And I do. And I don't always like it, but it's like, I think it's so important to just do it. I think it's just like being in shape with anything else. You know, if you don't work out, it's just going to get harder.
No, it makes me feel better because that's exactly how I feel. But you don't write with a computer, right? You do a notebook.
I tried to write with the computer again recently, just because it's so, I'm getting older and hands get sore, and I'm like, I really should be able to do this, but I had to go back right away to writing with a notebook. I think with the computer, first of all, it's so fast, and a notebook gives me more time to think of the next thing I want to write. And also with the computer, it's like, if I have a different idea, I edit it. So I delete and then retype, and then delete and retype. And with a notebook, I just have so much more room to work. So I'll write like a box around something that didn't work and put an X through it. Or a lot of the time, I'll write a bit and then I'll rewrite it before I put it on stage. And in the rewrite, it's a lot of me like putting a box around part and then moving it to a different part and then writing it that way. Because structure is so important, right? Like people have to know enough information to laugh at the punchline. And you want the funniest punch to be the last one.
Yeah.
And you don't know when you're writing if the sentence that you're writing is the fun, it just doesn't, it doesn't naturally come out in the right order. That's additional work that has to be done. And so, you can copy and paste on a laptop, but for some reason, I don't feel like the same magic happens through typing that happens through writing. I feel like there's an actual like energetic thing that takes place. I can take my notebook with me everywhere. If you take your laptop with you, you kind of look like a douchebag.
So
and
true.
It's heavier, it's more cumbersome, it has to be charged, you have to turn it on. You don't want to be in the back of a room where a show's going on with a lit up laptop, but people understand if you've got a notebook. It's just a different thing. I think it's more respectful in a way, even though it's like the same thing. Because I wouldn't, if I were on stage and I could see someone's face lit up with a laptop looking at it, I'd be like, get the fuck out of this room if you're doing that.
I know.
Yeah.
I'd be worried they'd be like writing everything down too that we're saying or something. I don't know. Not that my jokes are that good, but.
Well, and in my notebooks say a lot of the same stuff over and over and over again. Like once I get a set where I'm like, that's really my 15 minutes I'm liking, I might have, I write out a set list for every single show I do. And so I might have that same set written, I don't know how many times. That would look insane. That would be insane to do in a computer. And it would just be so many of the things that make sense to me in my notebook feel like a waste of space in a document. And it's so much harder to search through. And that's a matter of personal preference. Like I know that for some people, they find it easier to scroll. I would much rather flip through pages, like sit and scroll through Google Docs. It just sounds like a nightmare to me.
I know. No, I feel the same way. And people always make fun of me for having it. Like,
well, and for work, like what else do I have to do? This is the whole thing. The work is the whole thing. The work is every day for the rest of my life. So I'm not trying to take a shortcut, I'm trying to put a half an hour or whatever, an hour of writing. One of the first things I learned in comedy is that like clever words or clever wording is not funny enough. Like we don't get laughs from wording things in a funny way, if that makes sense.
I think so.
You get a laugh from a big punchline. So I have to say goodbye to like a lot of stuff that I think is funny. I would say 95% of what I write and think is funny, I have to, it never gets into my set.
That makes me feel better too, because I literally like was trying to write so much during the lockdown, and then I read it back now or trying to do it on stage, and I was like, oh my god, this is insane. Like, why did I think this was good? But whatever.
It probably was insane, and it probably wasn't good. And I think that that's like something that holds people back a lot. I think something that separates people from like people who are staying the same versus people who are making progress, something that keeps people really bad. Like being married to
Yeah.
your jokes, being committed. And I think that like 99% of what I like gets flushed down the toilet. I mean, of what I write, I should say,
Yeah.
just gets flushed. That's just the way that it has to be. And I think that like, the sooner we come to terms with that, the less we have. I mean, I can't tell you how much time I spend writing stuff where even as I'm writing it, I'm like, this is nothing. I'm never going to say it on stage.
Yeah.
But I was doing that last night. And from that came a new bit where I'm like, I can absolutely tighten this up. And like, I'm going to put it on stage tonight. And I think there's something there, but
Yeah.
that happens like so rarely compared to how often I write.
Yeah. How was being back at the store the first night?
It felt really good. It was kind of weird because it was like nothing had changed. It was like no time had passed. The original room smells the same way. The crowd spread out, but now that they're back to full capacity, I've done one set since they were back at full capacity, and I was sitting in the back of the room for like a while, and then there was a moment when I realized like, oh my God, this is the full original room. Like I haven't been in this in a year and 3 months, 2 months.
God, so crazy.
And I didn't even notice. So it just feels normal. It feels like being back home. It feels like none of this ever happened, which is crazy.
I know, so insane. Yeah, I get asked this a lot, so I don't know if you do too, but I know you started in Milwaukee and Chicago, and I started comedy in New York. Do people ask you like the differences between LA and Chicago, or LA and Milwaukee, or do you think there are any differences?
Yeah, for sure. I think it's really important when entering a new scene to kind of like forget everything that you think you know about like etiquette and protocol, because like every scene is different.
Yeah.
In Milwaukee, at least when I was there years ago, the expectation was if you were doing a mic, you would go and you would be there for the entire mic and you would watch all the other comics. Yeah. When I got to Chicago, that is not the expectation. That's ridiculous because there's more stage time, and so people can hit 3 mics in a night. And so that's the expectation, is that you're getting as much stage time as you want. Yeah. Same thing in LA, same thing in every bigger scene.
Yeah.
It's different everywhere, I guess. But I think it's important that people just like figure out what works best for them. Like I've never been someone where energetically I could really handle regularly doing 3 mics in a night. And it seems like that's kind of the expectation in this field. I find it ridiculous and I find it way too much. And it's never been a standard I've held myself to. It's just too much.
I know.
I have a career. I'm fine, so it's not a must, I'm living proof that it's not mandatory. What is mandatory for me is like getting a good night's sleep, having my basic needs met, eating nutritious food, having time to rest, having time to write.
Yeah.
I see people who are doing the same stuff every time I see them. And it's like, it doesn't matter if you're doing that 3 times in a night. If you are working a day job, you're going straight from there to mic to mic to mic, you're going to sleep, you're waking up early. There's no time in there to actually create a new body of work. And that's what this is. I mean, doing comedy is about constantly creating a new body of work. So like I'm polishing my bits while I'm writing new material, and I think it's really important to take time for that. I think it's also important not to be lazy, not to rest on our laurels, not to sit on the same set for years on end.
Yes. Yeah.
But yeah, I think that doing the work looks different for different people. And, I've been doing stand-up for 11 years. And so like, I've gone through periods where I was like basically doing the same set for years. Yeah. And from that experience, I know that feels like shit. That's not fun. It's embarrassing. It's not exciting. And eventually, honestly, it stops working because audiences can pick up on that. And I think that that comes from just a place of like self-doubt and fear. We don't want to try new things because we want to kill every time.
Yeah.
And you have to be willing to take the risk to like have jokes not hit,
Yeah.
you know, and if they're not hitting in the middle of a set where other stuff is hitting, it's very easy to just be like, well, that didn't work. People will laugh because you said, well, that didn't work. And then you move on to your shit that does work.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just not fun to do the same material all the time. What is really fun is like, and I just had this experience this weekend. I tried a new bit that I've been working on, and it was my first time actually putting it on stage. I didn't know if it would work.
Yeah.
And it hit, and that's such an exciting feeling because
Yeah.
now it's like I have a new joke.
Have any like bad gigs in 2020, like during the pandemic?
My God, are you kidding? Yeah, it's been a fucking nightmare. I did a show in a barn. I've done so many shows in parking structures, alleys,
Yeah.
baseball diamonds, multiple sporting fields,
Oh my God.
the roof of a grocery store. And that was like a good gig too, which is like what's hilarious is that like, I did a show in the back of a pickup truck recently, which was also a good gig. Just a fucking hair. I mean, just the alley behind a juice store where they sold like tires and tiles. That was also a good gig. Hell.
I did one with, I thought I was bombing the whole time, one of those car park shows where people were in their cars in the beginning. And I was like, people were like, oh, if the windshield wipers go off, that's good. And I'm like, what is the world coming to? Like, this sucks so much.
Yeah, totally.
But I was surprised. I was listening to some of your interviews and they used to get nervous on stage because you're so confident. Never have guessed that ever watching you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, no, I freak out. It's interesting because like, oh my God, this is so funny. I haven't said this to anyone else. So I was talking to a friend of mine and I was like, you know, it's interesting. I get so much less nervous now going on stage than I did before COVID.
Yeah.
I'm like, maybe it's because I have like a different perspective. And then I was like, no, I've started taking anxiety medication like 2 months ago. I feel way better.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I'm like doing everything. So yeah, that made a difference. I think that's why I feel less nervous, because it used to really be, I mean, this sickening fear, this like really miserable, like retching, just thinking I was going to faint, feeling like I was going to die before every time I went on stage. And the one thing that you can't hide is your hands.
Yeah.
So I was very careful not to use my hands until like a little bit into my set.
Yeah.
Because, hey, how's everybody doing? You know, the hands give you away every time.
Yeah. I was watching like an old tape that I thought like I showed all my friends and I was like, this is like when I first started, and I was shaking the whole time. My hands were like, oh good. Why did I show this to everyone?
It's really hard to control the stage when you're shaking.
How was like I always say the wrong thing, so I feel like you were so eloquent and perfect on that, and I feel like I would be so nervous talking for hours of like I'm like,
God. Thank you so much, because I said some things where I called my friends after and I was like, I cannot believe I said that. I said this and I said this.
Yeah.
And they were, oh, you know, some of them were like, ooh, that's bad. And some of them were like, I think you're fine, honestly. I mean, the thing that I had to like just be an acceptance about before I went on is that like, with that many people listening, a lot of people are gonna hate me. And that's fine. That's the expectation. I mean, anybody could talk for over 2.5 hours to millions of people. And even if like 0.01% of them hate you, that's like a shit ton of people.
Yeah.
And those people will be in your DMs and those people will be tweeting at you. What was really cool is my really good friend Jessica Michelle Singleton.
Oh yeah.
Great. Yeah. Offered, and this is like, it was just like such a loving thing. I'm still so moved by it.
Oh.
when I told her I was going to be on it, everyone will congratulate you. Your friends will be cheering for you. A really special person will say what she said, and that was, do you want me to log into your social media as you and delete all the mean comments and block people? And I'm like, fucking hell yes, I do.
Yeah.
And then as me after it happened, she deleted all the mean DMs. She went to Joe's page. He posted like, a thing after we did it.
Yeah.
And she blocked everyone who made a mean comment about me. She went to my page, blocked everyone who made a mean comment about me, went into my Twitter, did the same. I mean, just like took out the trash so that by the time I got to it, it was just people leaving positive comments. I only felt the love.
Oh,
So that was
never
like,
even thought of that. That's such a great idea. Like
I would never have thought of it either. Yeah.
I thought you were amazing on it. I didn't hear it.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I'm like, people are just so angry for, I don't
know. They really are. There are people who just disagree with me. There are people who just like fucking honestly hate women and don't want to hear women talk. And so I don't stand a chance against those people. I'm certainly not saying that that's everyone who hates me, know?
Yeah.
But it's also just like, there are a lot of people in this world and in this country where like, I don't want you to agree with me. I don't want you to like me. I'm not making stuff for you. I don't particularly want to make you laugh.
Yeah.
I'm not for everybody, and vice versa. I mean, the people, I have to just remember, like the people leaving these comments and the people freaking out, it's like, you were never going to buy a ticket to see me anyway.
Yeah.
So dig a hole and go climb in it for all I care.
Do you ever get like weird intros at places? Like, I mean, I'm doing comedy in Philly right now while I'm quarantining, and I never really got, like, someone last week put me up to Girls. I was the only girl in the lineup. Girls Just Want to Have Fun is what they like played, and they were, I know, and they were like, here's the only female. I'm like, why are we still doing this? Like, do you ever get, I didn't really see that at the best places, but I'm like, what? How is this still happening? But
it's gotten a lot better. I got way more of that when I was like in Milwaukee, and there were 3 women who did comedy, and so people were very excited to bring a woman on stage and know how to act right. I get a lot less of that. The one thing that I get the most is like people who just don't ask me. They don't ask me how to say my name, and they don't know how to say my name. It's not a sound that most people make, and that it's an unusual name, and I understand that. And as long as people try, I'm happy. But I have so many people where they're just like, Lara Beitz, and I'm like, you really should have watched any of my stuff. You should know how to say my name at this point. And if you've never watched anything I've done and you don't know how to say it, like, I'm totally available for that question. Please feel free to ask. What blows me away is when they don't ask and then they just go on and confidently say it completely wrong. I'm like, why? I just don't. It's not that it makes me that mad. It's not that it's a big deal, because it's not. It just genuinely confuses me. I don't understand. So get people where it's like you can ask me my credits, you know what I mean? And I'll tell you, like, you can ask me what I want you to say and I'll tell you. I have people who will pull out like deep cuts from my past, and I'm like, that's not that's not what I would have you say.
It's also just like a quick Google search, very easy to
very easy.
I saw you were doing self-tapes and they looked really good, or maybe I saw you post a photo of it or something. But
oh my God, I'm not going to ask. I mean, I do them. I shoot them on the oldest iPhone ever. I just try to, and I guess maybe I am the one to ask now that I'm saying it. I'm like, because I've read about it. I've taken I've taken acting classes, and I've submitted a bunch of them. Basically, like, the most important things from my perspective are like, read all of the instructions and then read all of the instructions again. Shoot your self-tape horizontally. If they want a full body slate, make sure your whole body is in the frame and do a slate. And then finally, and be off book.
Yeah.
And finally, don't take it too seriously. Don't obsess over it. Don't spend a ridiculous amount of time on it, because they're probably going to watch it and realize in the first second that they don't want you anyway. And if they think they do want you, you're going to get a call back. You know what I mean? And the thing that I read that really helped me relax is like, take a half an hour to do it and then be done, you know?
I like that.
And so I really like that. I kind of just do them to have them turned in. I have no expectations. That's not my wheelhouse,
Yeah.
you know? I'm a stand-up comedian.
Yeah. No.
And I've never gotten a call back, so I ask someone else.
Yeah, no, it makes me feel better though too, because yours looked really good, and I was like, oh, this is what I should do. Like,
yeah, I shot it on my iPhone with my phone balanced on a keyboard seat on a table.
Yeah.
With a box of Kleenex and like a potted plant and a couple puzzles and a candle propping up my. So it's not.
Sounds good.
I pulled my lamp over, you know.
Yeah.
Had it right in my face to make sure I was well lit.
Yeah. How was opening for Eliza Schlesinger? I saw you open for her in Vegas. I'm sure it was.
Yeah. It was great. It was awesome. I mean, she's a beast, and that, you know, the theater was sold out. I got to stay at a really nice hotel, and I really liked watching the way that she interacts with her fans. I really admire and respect it. And yeah, so she like does a VIP meet and greet afterwards, which I love the idea of comics doing VIP meet and greets, where it's like you can't shake hands with every single person in a sold out theater, but for X amount of money, like her real diehard fans like formed a long line, and she has, you know, the backdrop, and people got their pictures and got to say their little piece. Lots of people gave her gifts, and she opened all of them afterwards and thanked every individual person who got her a gift.
Wow.
And yeah, it was really cool. She's a really good example.
Is it different going from like a comedy club to like that huge of a venue?
If you have material that's specific to comedy clubs, then sure. But I love theaters because everyone is sitting to watch the show. Like, they're not giving drink orders, they're not paying a tab, they're not, you know, there's nothing to distract them from the show. So that was really awesome.
Do you have any guilty pleasure TV shows? Any Real
I
House?
watch Bachelor and The Bachelorette. I think they're the worst thing in the world. I think they're so sexist and offensive and racist and homophobic, and just I think they're so bad for America, and I never miss an episode.
No, I feel the same way, and I'm like, what am I doing? This is against everything I believe in, and I can't stop.
They're awful, and I cannot stop.
I know. I'm like, what am I doing? Favorite food?
Oh God, I don't get to eat any of my favorite foods anymore. I fuck with peanut butter heavy. I really like peanut butter. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that's a great option. Favorite city you've ever lived in?
LA.
Yeah. I thought I was gonna hate LA, and I loved it. I was like, oh, it's nice weather all the time. People. Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. Texting or talking?
Talking.
Yes. Yeah. I like forget to text, and then people get mad. They're like, do you hate? I'm like, I just don't look at my phone.
I forgot. Yeah. I always will think that like a guy has ghosted me, and then I look back and he texted me and I didn't respond. Yeah.